Alright guys, welcome back to my little Halloween marathon. This is going to be day number 2. So for day number 2, I decided to go with an early Super NES title. Super Castlevania 4 was Castlevania's entry into the 16-bit market back then. Konami had done some great things with the first 3 titles on the regular Nintendo Entertainment System, so everybody was pretty sure that they were going to be doing some amazing things on the 16-bit Super NES. And sure enough, they didn't disappoint at all. So with Part 4, basically Konami wanted to play it simple and keep the gameplay that made Part 1 and Part 3 so popular and just bring it over to the 16-bit library. And they introduced a couple of cool little gameplay mechanics as well. Now, one of those cool little features that was introduced with this title was the ability to control your whip from multiple angles. So you can whip up and down and obviously diagonally. You can also hold the whip in front of you and to actually use it as some kind of a shield, as you can see here. And another feature that was introduced as well was the ability to swing from certain hooks that were placed at strategic points throughout the stages. Another cool feature they also implemented with Part 4 was the ability to have a little more control over your jumps. So yeah, on the first few Castlevanias, if you jumped, you were committed to that jump. With Super Castlevania 4, the creators, the game developers, what they wanted to do was make the game a little bit easier. So they implemented the ability to have a little more control when you jumped. And another cool little feature they also implemented was the ability to have a little more control of when you are on stairs. So now you're able to drop down from stairs as opposed to being stuck in them. Now, the little feature regarding stairs and the ability to drop down from stairs is actually very helpful, because how many times have you gotten stuck at a certain stairway with a certain enemy or enemies throwing projectiles or anything at you, and you're stuck getting hit, and before you know it, you're dead. So yeah, that's another little feature, little tweak that actually helps in the overall gameplay, at least for me. What's also pretty cool about this game is that all the levels don't take place inside the castle. You actually start outside the castle and make your way inside. And that kind of always made me wonder when I first played the first Castlevania. You just see Simon Belmont kind of like walk up to the gate. And I'm thinking to myself, well, was it easy to get there? Did he have problems? Or is it just, can anybody just walk up Dracula's gate and just go in? So this game kind of takes care of that little aspect. So now you are well aware of all the obstacles and levels and enemies that you have to go through just to get to the castle, which I thought was pretty cool. And the cool thing about the levels is not just the fact that they take place inside and outside of the castle, but all the little cool features, Mode 7 effects and so forth that were used to bring these levels to life. I mean, some of them were just breathtaking. Yeah, I think we can all remember that one specific room that rotates around while you latch on to that hook with your whip. I mean, that was just one of the many uses of Mode 7 in that game. You had other levels where you had kind of like a spinning background, which if you stared at it long enough, it kind of made you dizzy, but it was really cool to look at back then. And if all the level designs and the little cool Mode 7 effects weren't enough for you, you had some really, really awesome parallax scrolling. And I mean, not just 1 or 2 levels of scrolling, I'm talking about multiple levels of scrolling. And I used to remember back then just staring at the screen and looking not only at what I was doing, but just taking a look at the background and seeing all those different levels, those different layers just in the background, and thinking to myself, man, that looks gorgeous. And the overall atmosphere of this game, I think, was just amazing. Not just the graphics and the settings, but the soundtrack. Let's hear a couple tunes here and you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about. So the overall soundtrack for this game is just amazing. If you haven't heard it before, you haven't played it, you haven't played Super Castlevania, at least listen to the music that accompanied this game. Is just an amazing soundtrack. It lends a lot to the overall atmosphere of the game. It creates a really eerie vibe. And to me, it's one of the last few Castlevania games that really used this music to just create that kind of like eerie atmosphere. Whereas games later on would be more rock-infused soundtracks, and after that, Symphony of the Night introduced more classical themes and stuff like that. But this one here was just overall moody. And there was something to that just makes this game just stand out after so many years. Due to all the little gameplay mechanics that I spoke about earlier, they actually help make the game a lot easier, at least for me. Same thing with the bosses. The bosses were just amazing to look at, but they weren't overly difficult or impossible, or to the point of being frustrating. And I think that just helped make the game just more fun and enjoyable for the majority of people out there. Even if you weren't a Castlevania fan, you can pick up this game and enjoy it a lot more because it wasn't frustrating to play. Now, my opinion here is that this game, Super Castlevania 4, is the best 16-bit Castlevania game. Now, a lot of you out there might say to yourself, well, wait a minute, what about Rondo of Blood? Now, I don't count Rondo of Blood as being part of the 16-bit era. And why is that? Well, it's because it wasn't readily available outside of Japan. I mean, this Castlevania was a great showcase to what 16-bit could do back in those days. I mean, it justified going out and buying the next generation console. And if you had done that and you owned this game, you had no regrets. So, there you have it. Super Castlevania 4. One of my all-time favorite games from the Super NES days. One of my overall favorite games of all time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this little recap. Stay tuned for day number 3, where I will be talking about a certain controversial arcade game. Stay tuned. Until next time, take care of yourselves.